Hello everyone, and welcome to my review of AEW Collision, where I try to express my thoughts on the show, without my brother barging in to take an Olympic-sized piss in the background. Seriously, that was some next-level nonsense last time. So I'm using AI for the voiceover because let's be honest, my on-camera skills are about as reliable as a WWE finish. Before we dive in, do me a solid, like, share, and subscribe to my channel. I'll be cranking out all the AEW reviews I can muster, and don't worry, I'll throw in some constructive criticism along the way. We're not gonna be like many YouTubers with consistent bashing and no constructive criticism. Alright, let's cut to the chase. This show was a dumpster fire with a few redeemable qualities. It's like ordering a gourmet meal and getting served a plate of cold spaghetti with a side of disappointment. Whoever's booking this thing needs to get their head out of their ass and hire someone with half a brain to structure these segments. Seriously, it's like they're playing Tetris blindfolded. Take Swerve Strickland and Ricochet's promo. It should have kicked off the show in the ring, not some backstage snooze fest. And Adam Copeland. Dude should have been on the mic at the end, laying out his plans for the AEW Championship at Revolution, not lurking in the shadows like a creepy uncle at a family reunion. Also, what's the deal with AEW Grand Slam? They went from a 50,000-seat arena to a glorified high school gym. Talk about a downgrade. Fans are going to roast that event harder than a marshmallow at a summer campfire. Now let's talk about the opening match, Samoa Joe and Hook versus Nick Wayne and Chris Sabian. They did a decent job protecting Joe. He's a former champion, for crying out loud. He shouldn't be trading moves with a couple of scrubs like Wayne and Sabian. And let's face it, Sabian's been booked like he just stumbled out of a clown car for ages now. But seriously, why the hell was Samoa Joe letting Hook take all those double-team shots? It's like watching a lion let its cub get mauled by a couple of hyenas. If Joe believes in Hook, fine, but they could have told that story a hell of a lot better. And don't even get me started on Christian Cage. What if he was involved? That would have added some serious flavor to this bland dish of a show. Now Nigel McGuinness, bless his heart, needs to be shown the door. I love a good joke, but come on, calling Sabian the sex idol of the British Isles. What the hell does that even mean? This isn't a comedy show, it's wrestling. And then we see Samoa Joe hitting a senton on Sabian. I'm sitting here thinking, this is the kind of tag match that could make you forget your own name. Can you imagine Joe and Hook against Bobby Lashley and Shelton Benjamin? That's a match that would make you pop harder than a kid on Christmas morning. In the end, Hook and Joe predictably get the win. I mean, come on, it's like watching the same movie on repeat. They really need to move on from Christian and his faction, because this feud is dragging on longer than my grandma's Thanksgiving dinner. I'm giving this opening match a generous 3 out of 5. It had potential, but it felt like a missed opportunity, like buying a ticket to a concert and finding out the headliner is a karaoke night. So right after that, we get a video promo from Adam Copeland challenging Jon Moxley for the AEW Championship at Revolution in Los Angeles. And let me tell you, Copeland hit the nail on the head. He pointed out Moxley's entitlement and reminded us that every generation of wrestlers builds on the backs of those who came before. He gave props to the Rock and Roll Express for paving the way so younger guys like him didn't have to grind every damn day like the 1980s workhorses. Copeland essentially said, I opened the door for you, Moxley. You were out there doing backyard garbage wrestling while I was setting the standard. And the part about Moxley keeping the championship in a briefcase, that's just dripping with entitlement. It's like a kid who gets a trophy for showing up. I appreciate that Copeland made sense for once, and it's a breath of fresh air compared to Moxley's usual word salad. I mean, the guy talks like he's had one too many at Philosophy Night. But here's where I got really frustrated. This segment was in the wrong spot. It should have been after the main event, where you'd traditionally announce a big match. And for crying out loud, it should have been Copeland speaking live from the ring. That would have hyped up the crowd so much better. Instead, we got a video package in the middle of Collision, which doesn't have the same viewership as Dynamite. Imagine if this promo had closed out Dynamite instead of that snooze-a-fest with Yuka Sakazaki versus Mercedes Moné. Who the hell is Yuka, anyway? If Copeland's promo had been the main event, it would have built him up as the hero of this story, clearly contrasting him with Moxley's confusing philosophy. It's a missed opportunity that could have added depth to the storyline. Next up was the match featuring Beast Mordos against a jobber. I swear, by the time I put my pen down to finish my notes, the match was over, and I gave it a big fat 0 out of 5. It did nothing for me. Mordos might be beating jobbers left and right, but he loses way too much when it counts, just like Brian Cage. And what's with the name of his finisher? Destination Hellhole. Sounds like something a first grader would come up with to sound edgy. They could have gone with something cooler like The Brazen Bull or Day of the Dead. You know, something that actually reflects his character. After that, we had Max Caster come out to insult Mordos. Caster threw out an open challenge, claiming he's the best. And then Rush showed up to beat him in a jabber match. Rush's outfit was something else, like a mashup of a Golden Bull, Jushin Thunder Liger, and the White Power Ranger. I mean, who doesn't love a good costume? But I'm giving that segment a 0 out of 5 too. Seriously, burying Max Caster like this is a crime. He should be winning matches, not losing to set up Rush. You could have built a fantastic match between him and Anthony Bowens for AEW Revolution. Instead, we get this nonsense. The 9 o'clock main event featured Brian Keith and Chris Jericho against the Outrunners. I was glad to see a backstage segment with the Outrunners. But why not do this on Dynamite to hype up Collision? A live promo in the ring would have made them feel more connected to the crowd. Too many backstage video segments hurt the flow of the show and distance us from the wrestlers. Promos in the ring are essential. And then there's Nigel McGuinness making another joke about Truth Magnum and his name sounding like a condom brand. What the hell is going on? Why is he suddenly a villain? He had a feud with Bryan Danielson, and now he's just bad-mouthing everyone without any coherent storyline. It feels random and out of place. In the match, Jericho and Truth Magnum exchanged knife-edge chops, and the Outrunners hit Jericho and Brian Keith with a Manhattan drop and hip toss combination. But it's jarring that the announcers are suddenly bringing up win-loss records. AEW should stick to their philosophy of making wins and losses matter. They used to show graphics and updates, and now it's like they've completely dropped that approach. If you want to emphasize wins and losses, you have to commit to it. Turbo Floyd did a scoop slam on Jericho, and then he picked up his partner to slam him onto Brian Keith. Big Bill distracted things, leading to Brian Keith getting a pinfall. I'm happy with this result since Brian has been losing a lot. He needs to look strong. After the match, Bandito came out to save the Outrunners from a double choke slam by Big Bill into a wooden table. But come on. Having a table spot here takes away from the street fight main event, so using multiple table spots loses their impact. It seems like they're setting up a feud between Big Bill and Powerhouse Hobbs. So why is Bandito getting involved? It feels like a clusterfuck, throwing people into a feud that doesn't enhance it. If I were booking Hobbs, I'd have him feud with Big Bill leading to a match at Grand Slam or Revolution. Then Jericho versus Hobbs for the Ring of Honor Championship, with the Outrunners protecting Hobbs from the Learning Tree's interference. That would make much more sense than Bandito's random involvement. Next up was Taya Valkyrie versus Harley Cameron. Valkyrie started off strong with a dropkick. Harley hit an Unzuigiri and a Tiger Feint kick, but Valkyrie blocked that. Then, Valkyrie hit a pile driver, which looked good, but Harley countered with a Canadian Destroyer, only for Nigel to hilariously rename it the Australian Destroyer. Harley got a roll-up victory out of nowhere, which felt jarring. Imagine if they had established Harley as a rookie, facing Marina Shafir instead, who's in the Death Riders, and feuding over the world title. That would have been a much stronger storyline. But I'm happy Harley is challenging Mercedes Moné for the TBS Championship in Australia. The best part of the show was the Swerve and Ricochet promo. If that had opened the show or been the penultimate segment, it would have created so much hype. I get that they want to draw fans to the Atlanta show next week, but Swerve versus Ricochet should happen at Revolution or Grand Slam. Imagine if that was the main event of Grand Slam. Swerve's promo was excellent. He brought so much energy, expressing his anger and being on the warpath against someone who deserves an ass-kicking. I appreciate Ricochet working hard to be a serious heel. He's not just giddy anymore. He's showing the depth of a character who's tired of being treated like a joke. His anger resonates with anyone who's been the butt of jokes. And I love how he's adding humanity to his character. Now, coincidentally, following this was the worst segment of the night was a video montage of Christopher Daniels' career. A week after his retirement, and you don't even do something where he comments or reacts to this dedication. If you're going to do something like that, it needs to be emotional. Have Daniels in the ring getting a proper send-off. Imagine Hangman Adam Page attacking him only to have one of Daniels' friends come out and challenge Page to a match at Grand Slam. I know I keep mentioning matches for Grand Slam, but it's because AEW has only announced 3 matches so far. They're doing a poor job of setting things up, and it makes it seem like they're half-assing it while focusing all their energy on Revolution. Then we had Harley Cameron with a Mercedes Moné puppet. Picture this happening in the middle of the ring, with the camera on the puppet. That would have added so much comedy and crowd engagement. Instead, we got a backstage segment with no crowd reaction, making it feel lackluster. We're getting Harley versus Mercedes Moné at Grand Slam, which is great, but they need an editor for this booking. A segment like that could have been 100 times more effective in front of a live audience, showcasing Harley as an underdog and making her challenge feel more impactful. The women's division desperately needs wrestlers that fans can rally behind. The next match was the worst of the night, Kyle O'Reilly versus Daniel Garcia versus Lee Moriarty for the TNT Championship. And let's be real, They need to consider renaming that title to the TV Championship and the TBS Championship to the Women's TV Championship. Or better yet, how about the HBO Max Championship, since they're on HBO Max? It's downright ridiculous that they haven't made these changes yet. I wasn't really engaged in this match, primarily because Lee Moriarty shouldn't have been in it at all. Shane Taylor would have been a much better fit. They've built that story up a lot stronger, with Shane Taylor starting fights with people and being a formidable force to take down. The choreography in this match was terrible. There were spots where the wrestlers were way too close to each other, almost like they were trying to remember their cues. It felt like nobody taught them how to execute a proper triple threat match. Traditionally, you'd have one wrestler knocked out or outside the ring recovering while the other two fight it out, but this match lacked that flow. It really screamed for a producer to step in and show them how to structure it right. And speaking of Daniel Garcia, I found myself thinking, what if Daddy Magic and Garcia teamed up instead of just having him as an announcer? They both have great skills and loads of emotion, and they could elevate the tag team division. After the match, Shane Taylor attacked, and then the Undisputed Kingdom stepped in to stop him. So now we're setting up a triple threat tag match featuring Team Daniel Garcia, the Undisputed Kingdom, and Shane Taylor Promotions. Look, I get it, people love multi-man matches, but when you have 12 and 9-person matches all the time, it becomes a chaotic mess that's hard to follow. The penultimate match was Megan Bayne versus Hyena Hera, and I'm giving it a big fat 0 out of 5. First of all, Hyena Hera, what a terrible name. It sounds like a bootleg Mortal Kombat character, or something a first grader would come up with. It's just ridiculous. Of course, Hyena jobbed to Megan Bayne, who they're clearly trying to turn into a star. But this show had 3 jobber matches that lasted only a few minutes, and with nearly 10 matches overall, it felt excessive. If you have multiple quick matches, it gets repetitive and starts to fatigue the crowd. You need to balance the pacing. The main event featured Moxley and Wheeler Yuta versus FTR in a Mid-South Wrestling street fight. I was glad they clarified that this was just a Falls Count Anywhere match dressed up with a fancy name. The action kicked off with Moxley and Wheeler getting ambushed in the crowd, and Cash bringing a ladder into play. Things got wild as Dax and Moxley fought in the audience, biting each other in the face like rabid dogs. Wheeler executed a back body drop to Cash on the ladder, while Moxley twisted Dax's nose with pliers. Another one of those repetitive shock value moments Moxley loves. Cash powerbombed Moxley into thumbtacks, and then Cash did a suicide dive onto Wheeler. Marina Shafir applied a rear naked choke on Dax, and when he fell back, she crashed through a table, which got a huge reaction. It's always a big deal when a woman takes a bump like that. Dax then hit Wheeler with a piledriver onto a steel chair, which felt brutal. The other members of the Death Riders came out, but it was great to see Adam Copeland and Jay White show up to combat them. This was solid storytelling. If the villains keep cheating, the good guys would logically step in to help their teammates. It added nice continuity to the match. FTR executed a double piledriver combination, sending Wheeler through the announce table. And I'm giving this match a 3 out of 5.